That's not something we use. It's better to use "it was so good." It was so funny. It was so badass. Or it was badass. It was cool. It was awesome. It was amazing. It was cool. It was something like that. So we don't want to say, as you can hear me, I'm getting energetic. I'm using energy when I express.
今日は英語修理店のエピソードです。英語を勉強している日本人が英語の間違いを正してくれないかと尋ねました。これを実際の会話英語で行ってみます。
Hey everybody, I am so glad to be here on today's episode of the Social English Podcast. Percy here. And I know you missed me. Sorry, I had a couple of things that I had to do. And I'm still here, and I'm going to continue doing this podcast for you. So don't worry. If you are new to the podcast, thank you for showing up today. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu. If you are a returning listener, thank you. Please support me on Patreon. Please go ahead and subscribe. Follow us on social media. Before we start today's episode of the Social English Podcast, I want you to listen to these words.
今日のソーシャルイングリッシュのエピソードは、中級または上級のスキルレベルで英語を勉強している人々を対象としています。初心者の方はゆっくりとエピソードを聞いてください。頑張れ。
First of all, I want to thank you, Ko, for that information. Everyone, please remember that today's episode of the Social English Podcast is for skill levels of medium to high. Today is another English Repair Shop episode. We have another interesting show for you today. Now, please remember, a Japanese listener asked if I can help with her English. And of course, I said yes. So together, you and I will fix her English and help her become a better English speaker. What is her topic? She wants to talk about an American movie that she saw. So she watched an American movie, of course, in English, and she wants to talk about her experience. Please think about this as you listen to today's episode.
すべての英語修理店のエピソードと同様に4つのパートがあります。パート1では、英語を勉強している日本人が間違って言ったことを正確に聞くことができます。パート2では、会話型のソーシャルイングリッシュスタイルで正しい英語を聞くことができます。パート3では、パーシーはあなたが同じ過ちを犯さないようにするために、彼が重要だと考えるヒントをあなたに与えます。パート4で、パーシーは正しい英語版を高速で自然な速度で言います。このようにしてネイティブの速度で英語を聞く練習をすることもできます。
For my non-Japanese speaking listeners, this is what Ko just said. We will have 4 parts of this episode. I will read exactly what the Japanese person said in the wrong English in part 1. In part 2, I will say the correct English in a conversational, social English style. In part 3, I will give you any hints or help that I think are important so that you don't make these same mistakes. In part 4, I will say the corrected English version in a fast, natural speed. This way, you can also practice your listening skills. So, before we get started, let's first listen to the original Japanese language for my Japanese listeners, and then we'll listen to the wrong English so you can see what the listener was trying to say.
シェフを見ました。とても良い映画でした。でも俳優陣のせいでまるでアベンジャーズを見ているようでした。先週クバーノを作りました。本場のものが食べたいです。
Here is part 1, the wrong English of the Japanese you just heard by the Japanese person learning English. There are 4 sentences. Let's get started. 1. I watched Chef. 2. It was the best. 3. I made Cuban sandwiches last night. 4. I want to eat real one. Okay, let's try that one more time, just the English parts only. Okay, please listen, kite kudasai. I watched Chef. It was the best. I made Cuban sandwiches last week. I want to eat real one. Okay, so that is the wrong English, everyone. There are some little mistakes or strange English. Now, my question to you is, how would you fix this? Think about it. Okay, so let's go into part 2. This is how I would fix this with real social English. Yeah. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. Listen very carefully. This is how we would say this the right way. It's going to be very interesting. Please listen very closely. Kite kudasai. Please be careful. Listen. 1. I just watched Chef. 2. It was so good. 3. Last week, because of that movie, I made Cuban sandwiches. 4. I wanted to try the real thing. Okay. That was the first version with each sentence, still 4 sentences. How would you fix this? Okay. How about this? Please listen one more time. This time, English parts only. Just the English. Let's go. I just watched Chef. It was so good. Last week, because of that movie, I made Cuban sandwiches. I wanted to try the real thing. Okay, that is how I would correct this with real, live, social English that we use in the West today. If you did not fix this sentence the same way, or these sentences the same way that I did, that's okay. But remember, my response, I'm using real social English, English you will use when you are talking to people in real social situations. Not written English and not informal, not business English, real social English. Okay, let's move to part 3. Here are my hints for you for today's episode. Hint 1. We don't use "it was the best" in real social English. We don't really use "it was the best." That phrase, that's not something we use. It's better to use "it was so good." It was so funny. It was so badass. Or it was badass. It was cool. It was awesome. It was amazing. It was cool. It was something like that. So we don't want to say, as you can hear me, I'm getting energetic. I'm using energy when I express. When I speak English, you have to use energy. Social English, energy. Okay? So yeah, we want the energy is with our words. We speak with our words and energy to give it that power, so that people really feel and understand that we really, really like the movie because of the way we talk about it. So let's move to the second advice, my second hint advice for you today. This is what you should say. Because of this, I did that. So we don't really want to just say, I did something. I did something and I wanted to try this. What we really want to say is because we experienced something, we did this, we saw this movie, we ate this food, we tried this game, this activity, we now did this. As a result of your experience. So, in social real English, what we're going to say is, again, because of this, I did that. Because of this thing, I did that thing. Because I watched the Lakers play NBA basketball yesterday, I went out and played basketball today. As a result of me watching the basketball game on TV yesterday, I wanted to play basketball today. Because I saw Harry Potter on Netflix, I tried to learn magic tricks today. Something like this. So this is how we use because of this, I did that. Okay? It's really natural to use this when you are having conversations in English. Now let's move to part 4. This is the natural fast speed of the corrected English. I will say it for you 2 times. Please listen carefully. Kite kudasai for my Japanese listeners. I just watched Chef. It was so good. Last week, because of that movie, I made Cuban sandwiches. I wanted to try the real thing. I just watched Chef. It was so good. Last week, because of that movie, I made Cuban sandwiches. I wanted to try the real thing.
このショーを気に入っていただけたら、5つ星のレビューをぜひお願いします。コメントは英語か日本語でお書きいただければ喜んで読ませていただきます。realsocialenglish.com にアクセスしてぜひ無料でダウンロードしてください。ほとんどの日本人の英語を勉強している人がやってしまいがちな7つの間違いとその正しい言い方。また、毎日英語を上達させるのに役立つ資料もたくさんあります。Apple Podcast、Google Podcast、Stitcher、そして今はパンドラでもポッドキャストを購読いただきます。支援者になっていただけませんか？私たちがこのショーを作るための支援として5ドルの寄付をお願いできませんか？今後のエピソードで感謝の気持ちをお伝えします。また、そこでしか利用できない新しいコンテンツも入手できます。patreon.com/socialenglish からご参加ください。ソーシャルメディアで私たちのポッドキャストを友達にシェアしたり、Twitter、Facebook、Instagram のフォローをお願いします。
Hey everyone, there you have it. That is today's episode of the Social English Podcast. Now, today, what I want you to do is think about how happy that you should be because we together helped a person learning English, studying English just like you. I hope you also learned something you can use for yourself in today's podcast. Today, my action item is for you to try and practice your English by using because of this, I did this. Okay? Because of this result, I did this. Okay? Practice this using different words and different things. Practice this pattern with a Japanese friend, or if you're lucky, a friend that speaks English. They will be surprised. Share your conversations on my Twitter page for this episode. I will personally comment on the first 5. Think about the other words that you understood and you heard from today's episode. Let me know on Twitter how I helped you and what you learned. Don't forget to listen to episodes 126 through 131 about beginning conversations and how to make one. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us. Also, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I'd really appreciate it. Do you want to win a 5,000 yen Amazon gift card? It's easy. This is how you do it. Just do these 3 things. Number 1, subscribe to the podcast. Number 2, follow us on Instagram. And number 3, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. If you cannot leave a 5-star review, please leave a 4-star review and let me know how I can make this podcast better for you. And that's pretty much it. I will announce the winners live on Instagram. I will see you in our next episode of the Social English Podcast. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Have a great day. We're going to do this together and get better with real social English a little bit every day. Peace and love. See you next episode.
今日は楽しい時間をありがとうございました。ぜひ私たちのウェブサイト realsocialenglish.com を訪問して日本語訳と役立つ情報を手に入れてください。また次回お会いしましょう。バイバイ。See you next time. Bye bye.